Welcome to a presentation on supporting word finding difficulties and vocabulary development. This presentation is produced by the Central Cheshire Integrated Care Partnership Speech and Language Therapy Department and will take approximately 30 minutes. For more information, please contact the number on the screen or access the website link. This presentation will be available to watch at any time.
This presentation will aim to answer the following. Why is vocabulary important? What are vocabulary and word finding difficulties? How do we learn and store words? What vocabulary should be taught? What strategies can we use to teach vocabulary effectively? And how can we support children who have vocabulary and/or word finding difficulties? To start, we will look at why vocabulary is important, and we have some facts to share with you. Vocabulary knowledge is a strong indicator of academic progress, as research shows that by the age of 6, it's estimated that children have a vocabulary of around 14,000 words, and by the time they leave primary school, they are expected to have around 40,000 words. The number of words they're expected to learn increases dramatically in high school, meaning if they have low vocabulary when starting high school, they will be at a disadvantage when learning all the new subject vocabulary required. Plus, vocabulary levels at school entry have been shown to be strong predictors of later literacy skills. Research also shows that vocabulary knowledge is important for both success in school and in the outside world, as vocabulary levels at age 5 are the single best predictor that a child born in poverty will escape poverty in adult life. Additionally, the Birkow report in 2018 found children with poor vocab skills are twice as likely to be unemployed by the time they reach adulthood. So, if they are struggling with vocabulary, it may be because of one of two things. There is a difference between the two, but the fundamental presentation and how we support these children are often similar. The underlying principle is how we store words, understand them, and retrieve them. One reason why a child may be struggling with vocabulary may be due to word finding difficulties. If it is solely word finding difficulties, the child knows the word well but struggles to access it at the right time. They understand the word and can follow instructions using that word but struggle to express the word themselves. For example, it may be similar to when you have had the word on the tip of your tongue. We all experience word finding problems, however, the difficulty is when it's more frequent and pronounced. You may notice, for example, a child talking around the word, or they may say nothing, or they may use words with a similar meaning or sound, such as dragon to mean dinosaur, or calculator instead of calendar. You may hear them using empty words such as thingy, or overusing simple words such as go for climbed with younger children, and run for sprinted for older children. And this, of course, will impact on their reading and writing. The word finding difficulties become more noticeable for less frequent and abstract words, such as emotion words, ideas, and concepts they are learning in school. These words are less tangible and they're new to the child. So, for example, if they were learning about flowers in school, words such as photosynthesis, stem, pollen, and petals are not used every day, and the children may not have hands-on experience with these concepts. And these word-finding moments may interrupt the flow of their talking, and it will impact on keeping up with conversations with their friends and family, demonstrating their knowledge, talking about what they did at the weekend, explaining how to play a game, dealing with conflict on the playground, among other things. And all of these things may affect their confidence and may lead to frustration. Another reason may be due to vocabulary difficulties described on the right-hand side. These are slightly different to the difficulties described for word finding. However, while they may have either of these separately, they may also experience them at the same time. You can look at the latest SALT care plan or report, which may tell you which one of these or both your child presents with. The main difference between word finding difficulties and vocabulary difficulties is that with word finding, the child knows the word well but can't access or retrieve it. Whereas for vocabulary difficulties, the child doesn't know the word, and they may have similar presentations, but their understanding may be more affected as they don't know the words. In English, there are often a lot of words for the same thing, and this can be very confusing. So think of how many words we have for the same thing. So fire, blaze, flames, conflagration. If a child has vocabulary difficulties, they won't know all these words, and we would expect a child to know at their age. So a child you work with can tell you what 2 take away 1 is, but they can't answer 2 minus 1 because they tend to understand more the simple language that is often used. Due to their vocabulary difficulties in the classroom, you may also notice that the child gives wrong answers, is quiet and reluctant to engage in class activities and discussions, struggles with reading and writing, and they may have similar difficulties with reading words and not understanding what they've read, having difficulties learning or retaining new words, struggling to understand and use complex words. So you may notice that the child tends to use more simple words. Children may have vocabulary and or word finding difficulties due to a number of reasons, including general learning difficulties, limited life experiences, specific difficulties learning and remembering new words, problems accessing words stored in their memory, or feeling demotivated or disinterested in the topic or learning process. Children with vocabulary and word-finding difficulties struggle to organise and store words effectively, and therefore will struggle to retrieve the word when they need it. So therapy aims to help these children to organise their vocabulary so they can put it in the right place and find it when they need it. So the bookshelf analogy that's on this slide comes from Semantic Steps by Sadie Lewis, and this can be used to describe the word finding and vocabulary difficulties children may have. So, on an organised bookshelf, you may arrange the books in categories, so by author or in alphabetical order, so you can easily find them. For example, the Nigella Lawson cookbook you're looking for. When you are learning a new word, it's filed away correctly and you can retrieve it when required. However, if you have a disorganised bookshelf and the books/words are piled up and a bit messy and unorganised, it will take you longer to find the words you're looking for. Similarly, with the disorganised bookshelf, when you learn a new word, you will struggle to slot it in correctly, and the chances are that old books/words are likely to fall off, so they're forgotten as they're not linked or stored properly. So when you see an organised bookshelf, it's easier to find the books and or words, and there is a shelf space for the new books/words to be stored. So for example, when you get a Jamie Oliver cookbook for your birthday, you will add it to your cookbook selection so you can find it easily when you need it. The key point to take from this presentation is that we need to help children to organise their vocabulary so they can put it in the right place and find it when they need it. Initially, you might need to take time to organise the vocabulary they already have, and then you can move on to teaching them new ones. To support this organisation, this approach has been taken from the Word Aware resource by Stephen Parsons and Anna Brannigan, which is based primarily on research from Beck et al.'s studies in 2002 and 2013. This approach can be used flexibly in the whole class or in individual groups or one-to-one. So, the STAR acronym helps you to organise your lesson planning and is based on you selecting appropriate words for the individuals, teaching these words effectively, solidifying the knowledge of these targeted words, and revisiting these words frequently to help learning and recall. So, the aim of the select step is to choose the most relevant and functional words, and we recommend starting with everyday words until the child is used to this approach. For any parents watching, this step is likely to be done in school, and you can request the word list from them. We recommend starting on one new word per session, and this can be built up depending on the child. So when choosing the words, it's useful to make reference to words covered in earlier sessions and to make links for example, building up a category or a topic link, but only teaching one new word at a time. So, for example, a goblet is a type of cup. Perhaps you could keep a new word book that can act as a personalised dictionary for the child and can be passed between home and school when teaching new concepts. But it's important to not teach opposites at the same time. Start with one of a pair, so for example, heavy, and compare with not heavy. Or you could use the word evaporation and compare it with no evaporation until the understanding of that word is secure. Now, think of a child you are going to use these strategies with. Think of what topic they've been working on recently. Think of 2 words that you would cover over 2 sessions to develop their vocabulary in this topic. Now check. Are these words similar or are they opposites of each other? Will they be useful? So will they be likely to be encountered again? Are they linked and not randomly selected? So feel free to pause the recording to complete this slide. The aim is to teach the child the new word through showing them how it's written, defining the words, and showing them visually, so using photographs, symbols, and teaching the sounds that make up the word, so what the word begins with, and so on. And this is needed because the more you know about a word, the more likely you are to remember it. And this increases ease of access and speed of retrieval too. Here are some top tips to use when teaching your child new words. Tell the child it is a new word. This reassures and focuses them on the task. Say the word in isolation, so well on its own, and this increases the child's chances of hearing the sounds and storing the word accurately. Avoid teaching too many words at the same time, so as we mentioned previously, starting with one word per session. Teach the word in as many contexts as possible to help the child fully understand it and all of its uses. Avoid moving on to a new word too quickly. So if after one session you don't feel the child has learned enough, revisit it in the next session and don't add a new word in. Share key vocabulary with parents. So every time a child hears a word, it increases their chance of remembering it. And encourage the child to say the new word out loud. This helps them to store the sounds much more accurately and also lets you check that they've heard it properly and gives you the chance to model it back if they haven't. Here are some ideas on how to teach and introduce the words selected. So using pictures or symbols to represent the word, looking at the sounds in words, so clapping out syllables or beats in the word, rhyming the word, looking for the first sound, saying the word to a partner, or discussing the meaning of the word, so encouraging contributions about what they may already know and add on that knowledge. Also linking with known words and any knowledge they have beforehand. Using the word in a sentence, placing it in an appropriate close sentence, modelling the sentence and giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and working together to build a group sentence from other people's contributions. Doing an action, so acting it out individually or in a group, and this can help retention and retrieval as using another mode of learning to trigger the word or root knowledge. You could also make a song for the word, so using repetition within the song or a rap to aid memory. Having a working word wall, so as a display in the classroom, so you could add words and symbols to the working word wall with other topics. Or you could use a word pot, so add a pot of words that have been taught to review in the future. Word maps are a useful way for supporting new vocabulary, especially technical words, which can often sound similar. So condensation, evaporation, or precipitation. They explore the word's meaning and its structure and sounds at the same time. So they're similar to mind maps in their use of colour, images, and just a few words, but it focuses on just one word, whereas a mind map usually explores a topic. So, to draw a word map, draw a picture of the word in the centre and encourage the child to think of its meaning and give about 3 ideas. And add this information to the left-hand side and draw the branches in green. And this provides the general knowledge about the word. Then, encourage the child to think of sounds and complete. It has so many syllables or beats or claps it starts with and words it rhymes with. And then add this information to the right hand side and draw the branches in red. And this provides the structural information about a word. So try and keep the writing to a minimum and use pictures and drawings and colour to facilitate the visual memory. And keep the structure constant so the child can start to use word maps independently. And they can also help give definitions for words. And there are lots of apps available so the child can make their own word maps. The Pip St John website is a really useful website to support the teaching stage, and the link is at the bottom of this slide. So, again, the focus is on the green for word meaning, so what it is, categories it belongs to, and red is for the sounds in the words. So how many beats, syllables, or claps are in a word, and what sound does it begin with. So, for example, if we were making a word map for the word flamingo, we'd put the word in the middle with a picture and photo. And then we'd think about what sort of thing is it. So a flamingo is an animal. Then we would think about what is it, and it's a type of bird. Next, we'd think about what we do with it. So we go and visit flamingos at the zoo. And then you also might want to include features, so wings, that a flamingo's pink and has long legs. And then you'd think about what sound does it begin with, and then you would think about the syllables or beats in the word. Now, pick one of the words you chose earlier and have a go at creating your own word map for it. If you have different coloured pens, try to follow the green for mean, red for said rules. Now, remember, if it is a more abstract word, some of the example options may not work as well. The following slides show other visual ways to learn different types of words. You may want to use a variety of approaches. This is an example of an attribute web. You write the word you're looking at in the middle of the circle, brainstorm words that are related to the word, and write them on the spokes. The pupil can then decide which words they want to use in their story from all the words that you have written down. Venn diagrams are useful when some information can belong to more than one category. Here are two examples showing how Venn diagrams can be used to compare and contrast. Multiple meaning trees are useful for older children if they're having difficulty to understand words which have more than one meaning. Pictures should be added where possible, so here are two versions of the multiple meaning trees. So there is a free Twinkle multiple meaning tree activity that can be accessed using the link at the bottom of this slide. Now we are going to move on to the Activate step. Activate is about providing lots of opportunities to explore the word meaning and link to their own knowledge. So, some of the strategies you may already be using, such as a working or new word wall display, discussing the words, role-playing when opportunities arise, and it is important to provide lots of opportunities to use and practice these words every day. Finally, the review step involves revisiting new words taught frequently, so these words can be committed to their long-term memory. You might use the following ideas to review the topic words. So, clapping it out, acting it out, or telling a partner what you remember. Returning to it at intervals to help fix in the long-term memory. So we're doing it the next day, the next week, or the next term. Using a working or new word wall, word maps, and word maps as prompts to use words in speaking or writing. Using a word pot and then asking questions about the word. Having a word or words of the week. And putting in a timetable, regular word challenges or games. Here are some examples of activities you can use at the review stage. Word connections involve writing the target word in the middle, then writing some words that are linked and some words that are not linked. The child then has to choose the words that are connected, draw a line to them, and explain why they link. Word storms are a variation of a brainstorm and encourage the child to think of as many words associated with a target word. Working in a small group can be helpful because listening to the ideas of others can broaden their understanding of each child. And then you can record the ideas on a paper or flip chart. Other activities you can use at the review stage are word choice. So word choice involves giving the child a list of words which may or may not be associated with the target word. So get them to cross off the ones that don't link. And then there's word bluff, which is a variation of call my bluff and involves writing down 2 or more definitions of the target word, and one's correct and the others are incorrect, and getting the child to select the correct one. And to make it harder, you can make the definitions more similar. And this is a good group or pair activity, as they can write definitions for each other. The field of grass analogy is a useful way of thinking about how words are stored in our brain. So, imagine walking through a field with long grass once, and you barely leave a mark. But the more times you walk the same path, the deeper the marks become, until you've created a pathway. The more times the child is exposed to the word or uses it, the more marked that pathway will become in their brain, making the path easier to follow. But if it's not revisited, it may grow over, making the word difficult to access next time, which is when we experience them tip of the tongue moments. So here are golden rules to support a child who has word finding and or vocabulary difficulties. So teach children how to recognise when they are stuck, so they can ask for help. Increase their confidence in non-verbal activities. Give more time to answer to reduce anxiety, and try not to jump in when they're talking. Always make vocabulary learning accessible and interactive. Frequent repetition is key. Communication and consistency between home and school is really beneficial. Can they say it another way or describe it? Can they draw or show it? Give them cues, so it begins with, give them a choice. Is it this or that? We are supporting these children to find the answer rather than just giving it to them, and this reinforces the path or link in the brain. So this work needs to be embedded into a lesson to have impact and be relevant to the child. So it's much more beneficial and targeted than being seen separately by the speech and language therapist. In summary, good vocabulary and word finding skills are important for all learning and development and can be a predictor of academic success. To understand, store and use words, a complex, interconnected process has to occur, and when this breaks down, it can have a knock-on effect across areas, including social and emotional well-being. There are many ways to support this storing of information, but repetition is key. And we can use the STAR approach to select, teach, activate, and review specific words that we want children to be able to retrieve in the future. Thank you for watching this virtual training session on vocabulary and word finding difficulties.